Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, guys? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday Show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Andrew Sullivan, aka Sully. He served 18 years as a Navy SEAL, retiring as a senior chief. He founded Community First Project in 2022 and Blue Force Strategies in 2020, both located in Virginia Beach. You can catch Sully on social media, and to take a deeper dive, go check out c1p.org. Brother, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for reaching out, and thanks for having me on.
Dude, I'm super stoked, man. We were around the same Bud class, and I was trying to find a way to get out of Buds because I was struggling to try to get out. So it's just you probably crushed it, but me, I was just wandering out of it. But one of the things I like to start talking about before we get into what you're doing post services, transition specifically, because a lot of people who listen to this, the business world, they really are interested in that finite detail of the transition. Yeah. So what did that look like for you?
My transition was a little odd because I got out in COVID, right? So I medically retired. I had already been out of work for, 6 months because we weren't even going in. And you'd think it would give me time to have a plan, but, it didn't. And a lot of that is because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't have any desire to get an MBA. I went and got my master's in strategic leadership. I didn't want to go into the business world, but I knew I wanted to do something that was impactful and something that helped people. So for me, I got out, I started my my LLC and I just started contracting for people while I bought myself some time. And I kind of opened myself up to my network, just started asking people, what can I do? What should I do? Where do you guys see me? What am I good at? And getting all the feedback I could get. And really, even with all that, I just kind of stumbled upon what I ended up doing, which for me is a nonprofit. But it was, I think I made it more difficult on myself than it needed to be. But
sure.
I probably wouldn't change it either.
So that's an interesting point you bring up, that you got out during COVID, because I've never had, that's an interesting topic, because a lot of guys get out, they have a trouble transitioning into a civilian again. Mm-hmm. But COVID's a whole nother layer. And people are not working out of their offices, businesses are laying off people. And so finding work must be tougher, but you went down to the trajectory of being that entrepreneurial spirit, wanted to find something that you related to, find your next mission. So that's pretty awesome, man. And I'm glad you found it. Let's talk about it.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. So I got out in 20 and immediately started at LLC and started contracting, and realized really quickly that I didn't want to make other people money based on my skill set, which is exactly what I was doing. And the only difference was they were willing to start a company and invest and put themselves out there. And I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to do that. And my focus was going to be on law enforcement, because throughout the career, at the command, we do ruts in different cities. And our way to kind of give back to those people is by training law enforcement when we go and use their targets. So I've been training cop for, almost 15 years before I even retired. And I knew they needed help. So my company, originally my for-profit company, was training law enforcement. And the focus I wanted to really hammer home was that we need people at the patrol officer level that are capable of responding to an active shooter. Because it's not the SWAT team coming to get them. It's whoever's closest in proximity. And usually that's the person with the least amount of experience. So that was the focus of the for-profit. And it took me about 3 months to realize that nobody out there could afford me at the patrol officer level. Right. So all my customers were DOD and federal agencies, and the patrol officers, the people that I wanted to protect my kids. And I felt passionate about, just they couldn't afford it. So I'd go train them for free on the weekends. And, we talked a minute ago about trying to find my purpose and the transition. Well, I stumbled upon my purpose. I knew that if money was the reason that the law enforcement that I felt needed the training couldn't get it, then I was going to figure out a way to make the money for them. And that's when I started my nonprofit. And the goal of that is to provide no cost training for active shooter and critical incident response for patrol officers. And that led into me forming the 501c3 in 22. And that's probably about 80 to 85% of my time now is spent on the nonprofit, not the for-profit.
As it should be. And I tell you, man, Yeah, you've got a meaning and purpose. You've got a new shield to armor, which
Yep.
is super important post service. And to that tune, you got a whole nother set of skills, but another set of tools. And it's very difficult to raise money for charity these days because the market is saturated. It's so
It
saturated.
is.
But you bring up a valuable point, because I don't think a lot of people listening really understand this. At the patrol level officer, the amount of training they do not receive, the amount of budget that they don't have to your skill sets, I mean, there's night and day difference. But we all assume that these guys and girls are going to just run to the deal or the tick, and they're going to actually, finish everything off, and everybody's going to walk home safe. And when you start to understand their limitations, it's not that they can't do the job; they're just limited in what they're provided, right?
Absolutely. And for me, I never lost my will to serve, even though physically it was hard for me to do the job and keep up with the kids that were coming in. When I retired, I still wanted to do something service oriented. It wasn't about making as much money as I could and hence not go and get my MBA. And uh, it, it dawned on me there was a need and I had a solution. And the more I started digging in and looking into the training in law enforcement and watching the body cam footage, which became pretty prevalent, mostly on the defund side, where they're like, "Hey, look at these officers, look what they're doing. These guys are bad. We need to prosecute, arrest them, fire them, this and that." And I'm watching the same video, thinking, "Man, he did that because he was never trained how to do it correctly."
Right.
And that's everything tactical, especially at the patrol level. Like I think police are great at 99.9% of their job, but a critical incident response, like an active shooter, is something that most law enforcement officers will never face in their career. So the messaging out there now is, well, why are we going to spend all that money to train on it when the odds of my guys or women ever being in that situation are so small? Well, the result is now Uvalde. When they do get in that situation, it's catastrophic. In kids or communities are losing the lives of the people in there because we don't want to spend the money up front to train police properly.
Yeah.
And even now, the average number of the average amount of time a cop spends on the range shooting is 12 to 15 hours a year. A year.
Man.
You think someone that carries a gun for a living would have more training than that on firearm safety or proficiency, and it's just not happening. And realistically, the majority of the departments that I go and work with, they go in, they shoot their qual, they leave. They're not even touching 12 hours because they passed the qual, so they got to spend the time with the manpower they have focusing on those that don't pass the qual. So it's a scary situation. And a lot of what I do on the nonprofit is try to educate the communities and just normal everyday people on the shortfalls in training and why it's so important.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, you're not only educating the officer, but you're taking care of like you said, the community.
Yeah.
You're saving lives by doing what you're doing, which is so important.
I look at it every day in the perspective of a parent, and my kids are 15 and 12 right now, and they leave the house and I worry. They go to school and I worry. Every time they have an active shooter drill, well, who's teaching it? What is Virginia Beach for me? What is our police department's response to an active shooter? And I've worked with Virginia Beach cops, right? It's limited. It's minimal. And we had the courthouse shooting here where we saw firsthand how limited experience affects the response.
Yeah.
And, I want to fix that nationally, not just here.
We'll dive in a little bit to what exactly you do. You don't have to give the full details, but
yeah.
When you come alongside police department, what are you working on with them?
Fundamentals. Bottom line, fundamentals. And most tactical training goes to the SWAT teams, right? That's what the budget's for. And SWAT will do the most tactical work, right? So it makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, 95+% of critical incidents like active shooters, they're done by the time a SWAT team shows up. So what are we doing to enable the patrol officer or the school resource officer? And for me, it's, well, let's get them in a room and let's talk basic fundamental response to an incident. And it's really shaped like the green team CQB portion, where it's very simple: crawl, walk, run. We're starting 2-man CQB, hammering home the basics, and we're just adding on every day. And we do this in a 40-hour course. We can do it in 4 days or 5 days. And by the end of the week, they're doing, we call them full mission profiles. They're doing full scale building, school, whatever we have available, with role players, paint. And, we're changing up the responses to single man, 2-man, 4-man, multi-response, different times, different agencies. And we're really just trying to make it as realistic as possible like we do when we go on training trips at the command, right?
Yeah.
It's based on that because we really are the best in the world, along with our Army brethren, on a response, an active shooter hostage rescue. And we have all these guys with knowledge after 20 years downrange doing this for real. And they just want to share that knowledge with the people that are protecting their families and their communities. And that's it. It's really basic.
Yeah.
It's
And
should
it's
be have
important.
it is.
It's so important too, because there's a point in time where as we don't do this job anymore, we start to lose some of those things. We forget about
Yeah.
some of that stuff. So sharing as much knowledge up front before you lose sight of what it all was.
Yeah.
Although the other side to it is I've realized that when you become an instructor, you become better at your job, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I never had a job at Buds, but I did, God, I can't remember, like, I think 2011 or 12, I was a green team instructor and I got to run CQB for 2 classes, which, like everybody else that goes down there, you go kicking and screaming and you come back thinking, man, that was probably the best experience of my life, because it opened my eyes to the rest of the world outside the squadron, which
Yeah.
is significant. And it made me better at my job. It made me much better at CQB personally, but also it gave me a much better ability to teach it. It was a wonderful experience, man. And I love teaching it now.
That's one thing that's interesting I've never thought about, is that you're teaching these foot patrol officers to actually do 2 4-man entries, room entries.
Yeah.
And I always look at it as though this police officer is either with a partner or by themselves in a squad car responding to an incident, so they have to go clear it by themselves. And now you're teaching a team to actually be able to manipulate and go in and do stuff, which is so much more powerful.
It is.
That's
Yeah.
impressive.
At the end of the day, thank you. At the end of the day, what we're teaching police officers how to manage stress. That is it. And if you look at Green Team, it's one big stress-induced critical incident for however many months it lasts, and whoever can handle the stress and compartmentalize it and be able to perform accordingly is going to make it through. Well, it's the same thing here. These officers have never trained in stressful situations. You know, they do an active shooter course sometimes, and it's usually a day or two, mostly classroom, and then they put them through a canned scenario, and then they sign them off and say, "Yep, you're good to go." And the analogy I give, everybody understands sports, nobody understands our world. So think about taking a high school baseball player and saying, "I'm going to make you a quarterback." And you put him through a 3-day course, and you bring in Tom Brady to show him how to throw a few balls, and then you set up a couple plays with a fake defense that doesn't really know how to play football, and you run the plays, and then at the end of the week you sign them off and say, "Man, you're a quarterback, great job. Now go back to your job playing high school baseball." And then 2 years later you call them up and say, "Hey, Tom Brady's hurt, I need you to start in the Super Bowl, and if you fail, you're going to jail." That's what we're doing to them right now. We are setting them up for failure.
Right.
We're having them do a high level tier 1 hostage rescue operation on a 2-day, 3-day training.
That's crazy.
And then we want to prosecute them when they fail and blame the departments and blame the officers. When at the end of the day, man, let's start blaming the budget. Let's start blaming city councils and the cities and the states and the people that are giving them limited budgets and not mandating that they train accordingly. Yeah. Because 40 hours a year, which is the average of in-service training, is not enough. And that's everything. That's just not tactics. That is anything.
That is unbelievable to me that is so limited. And you're right. It's everybody the head shed. It always is that problem. It's always that problem. It comes back to the head shed, the leadership, the people that are over top who don't do the job, who truly don't understand what these men and women go through.
Yeah. Well, they don't, and that's part of my job is helping them to understand. It's not necessarily the chiefs of police or the heads of the police departments. Right? They're doing what they can with their budget.
Yep.
But the budget isn't enough. And if we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars overseas to fix problems in other countries, why aren't we fixing this problem first?
That's a massive rabbit hole we could go down, bro.
Oh, huge, right? Yeah. Clearly, I'm not here to talk politics, but at the end of the day, this is a problem. And I did a podcast, God, when was it? In November. And it came out the day of the last school shooting in Missouri. Literally that morning. And the promo I did, it was me saying, it's not a matter of when the school shooting is going to happen next. It's where is it going to happen? Because it's going to happen. And within 2 hours of that being released on social media, there was another school shooting. It was, it took my breath away. I couldn't believe it. And unfortunately, it's going to happen again.
Right.
And we don't know where it's going to happen, but we're trying to prepare. We're trying to reach as many officers as we can to just help. I'm not here to get in a gun control conversation. I'm not here to talk about mental health. I'm here to talk about we have a problem, and the only people that can respond are police officers, patrol officers, and we're not giving them the training to do it. Let's fix that problem.
Yeah.
That's what we're about.
I love it. And, to that point, so I'm in a small town in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
just north of Dallas, right? And we had the Allen outlet shooting. It was last year.
Yeah.
And the tactical unit sniper had to actually deploy, which took time, and people were killed to get him in position to actually shoot.
Yeah.
And so, again, it goes back to exactly what you're talking about. And I love the name, Community First Project. That's an awesome name, and it explains exactly what you're doing.
I appreciate that.
You've put some thought and energy into this, man.
We really did. And to me, I wanted to make sure this is not a partisan organization. This is everybody's problem. Community safety. It says it right in the name. It's all about 100% of this population. So when I came up with the idea in 21, I took a while and talked to anybody who would listen to me and got ideas. And then when I formed the 501c3 in January of 22, I wrote my business plan and I sent it to every politician I could get to read it and give me feedback on both sides of the aisle, because I wanted to take any verbiage out of it that would offend anybody, which is crazy how much stuff I had to change on both sides. But we got it to a point where now I get donations from both sides of the aisle. I have people advocating for me from both sides of the aisle, and that's the way it should be. Like, we need to fix this as a group, as a community.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of thought into the name and into how we present publicly, and trying not to get involved in any debate or conversation that's going to try and divide us.
I love it, man.
We can't have it.
It's a great name. How are you word of mouth right now? How are you getting out there?
Yeah, I have a lot of help. We'll say it that way. I have a big network up in New England. We started this in Massachusetts because it's my home state. I grew up there, and I've had a really great relationship with Boston police over the years, and I wanted to help them. But I also wanted to prove that I could take Navy SEALs, bring them to a very liberal state, train police, and then have the state support the training. And currently, Massachusetts has an earmark for us on their budget, and we get money from them every year. So they're on board. They're supporting. We're hitting departments all over the state. And, I've had some great people that have helped me network over the 2.5 years we've been doing this. And without them, I'd be nowhere. 80 to 85% of my budget comes from private donors. And it's all because we have a good network of people that want to help because they believe in the mission. And, going forward, we absolutely need federal funding. We need state funding and to really take this nationally and scale. But I will never get rid of the private donor, because it brings the community into the solution, and it helps them feel like they're a part of remedying something that's such a critical issue in our society right now.
Check.
So it's been great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you look for in your instructors, and how do you select them?
All my instructors are Tier 1 special operations, so either our command or our Army brethren. I do have a SWAT officer on every training, because I think there needs to be compliance between what we're teaching and what the police can actually do, right? Not everything we do is applicable to law enforcement. So at the end of the day, I have guys now, which is a great place to be, reaching out to me when they're getting out. And what I like to look at it this way. I'm giving guys that year of transition to make some money, help out a cause that they believe in, and allows them the time to find what they want to do next in their lives. The long-term goal is to get guys that are, with the federal funding, that is to get guys that are going home to wherever they came from, and then hire them as my program manager for that area. Yeah. So I'm hoping to roll that out next year in Montana. Because I got a guy that I worked with who's getting out, who's going back there. We're already talking. It's just a matter of being able to fund it and having the money to do it. So, Tim Sheehy, if you're watching, let's talk. Let's get that brotherhood going up in Montana, and let's start helping your law enforcement up there. So,
okay,
yeah,
that's badass. What things do you need help with right now?
Fundraising. I turned down 9 out of 10 departments right now, which is awful. I hate to say no. And when I say turn them down, that just means I can't do in-person training, because I don't have the budget, but I will absolutely help them with SOPs, TTPs. We can talk about whatever help they need in administratively. We can help. If they need gear, if they need tactics, we do it virtually until such time as we have the money to be able to send instructors down there to teach. So I have no issues getting instructors. I've got guys knocking on my door all the time. No issues getting departments. I've got them reaching out to me all the time. It's getting the word out there and helping to generate the publicity and grow our social network to help people understand the shortfalls in training. And then it's finding people willing to support. And we are now having a footprint in Texas, working with Fort Worth, Dallas. We're talking to people in Austin, Midland, and San Antonio. So we are looking to do some big time fundraising in the Texas area to generate revenue that's going to go all back into the law enforcement locally.
Awesome. Well, you're gonna have a hard time. It's a pretty small state, so I don't know if you can find any donors.
Yeah, right.
But well, we'll help you, man. When you get that initiative going in Texas, as far as wanting to fundraise, we'll get it.
Yeah, it's already going. I linked up with this woman, Kim Pastor, out of Austin, and she just started her own foundation a year ago, the George Pastor Foundation. He was a SWAT officer at Austin PD, and a year ago, November, he was the one man on an HR and got shot and killed. And her response was to throw herself into a nonprofit and try and fix the training in the law enforcement in her area. Because in her words, if they had better training, that might not have happened to her husband. So she reached out to me and asked what we need to do to get you down there and how can we pay for it. I was like, you can't. You just bring me down there. We'll start talking to people. We'll find the money. We'll find the donors and we'll train the officers, because I'm the same mindset as you is they shouldn't have to pay for it themselves, and they should never be denied the training they need to survive and to help our civilians survive. So, Austin's a great area, and again, another liberal area that we're trying to show benefit in, and Dallas Fort Worth is another one. So, we are in Texas, and we are going to try and grow and work with whoever will help us out, whether that's private donors or if there's manufacturers, foundations, Walmart, anywhere you think people would benefit from this type of training for law enforcement in their community. We're trying to get them on board to help.
Well, interesting thing on that note. So Governor Abbott actually released a statement. It's now an order where we have to have a law enforcement or an armed guard in every school in the entire state. So that's also plays into it. It doesn't have to be necessarily a police department, but could it be?
Correct.
Yeah, perfect. I got some. We're going to talk offline because I got some people you need to meet for sure.
Love it. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. This is awesome stuff. Right? It is, man. It is. I started my charity 13 years ago, hard to believe. Yeah. And, if I took credit for it, it'd be like an asshole. Everybody,
I know.
Thousands of people, right?
Absolutely. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I tell people that, and they don't realize it because, my background with Buds and Green Team and all the deployments and all the injuries, and the hardest thing I've ever had to do is raise money. Yeah. It's daunting, and it's not for the weak of heart, and it's very countercultural to our backgrounds. Coming out and just asking people for money. And yeah, it's something that I've grown to love while still hating, but yeah. I do it. And for me, it's all about the greater cause and the greater good. And I've been fortunate to have people help me along the way, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Absolutely. So. Well, that's the thing, man. If you stick with it, you'll be super successful, and you've got a serious program. Like you can see right what you're doing. And I've seen a lot of charities that have popped up over the years that I'm like, I'm not sure that there's a benefit or a need, but okay, I'm supportive, do your thing. But yours is massive. I mean, we're really on a hard kick right now with this country to make it fortified. We've got cartels here. We've got ISIS. We've got all kinds of crap that needs to be flushed out. So empowering our officers, that's badass. Well, here's the deal, people. Make sure to go check out c1p.org and make a donation. Like I said, we'll be talking offline, but if you can make a donation to the organization of any level, we would greatly appreciate it, because it's going to empower our officers through truly the best operators. In the pecking order of like military, Sully, he's like over me as a SEAL, so I have to look up to him, and he knows it. He's just being humble, but you're getting tier 1 training, which is something that I want. It's something that every officer should have, and we need to empower them with 20 years, like you said, of 2 different wars. of this information. So if you can make a donation, we would greatly appreciate it. We're going to post up your nonprofit and your links so that people can get in touch with you. And then
that.
I want to touch on Blue Force Strategies real quick.
Sure.
You have another initiative. I want to tap a little bit into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, Community First started as Blue Force, and my goal was to train law enforcement on the for-profit side, which clearly didn't work out just from the lack of funding. So I kind of tabled that when I started the nonprofit, but I have some connections in some of the three-letter agencies that have reached out to me over the years, even before I got out, with kind of combining my security tactical background with their I would say intel gathering online backgrounds. And what we do is we offer a concierge security service for ultra high net worth, and it's really keeping people safe, and for whatever reason they need the protection. If it's personal security, fine. If it's threat assessments for their offices or their homes, we can do that as well. If it's looking into people that you're looking to hire for your company, anything you can think of, we have access to some of the best networks that the military and the government agencies can offer to be able to provide that type of service. It's really something that popped out of nowhere, that organically we weren't looking to do this. People just kept coming to us with requests, and we're like, all right, if the need is there, then why don't we incorporate? And by the way, I have this company I already started that's not doing anything right now. We'll just run it through that, and that's what we did, and it's been great. I will say that I tend to pass stuff off to my partners because my focus right now is getting that nonprofit up running nationally and freestanding on its own before I put more of my time into the for-profit. But it's been great. It's opened my network up quite a bit. There's a lot of people that reach out on the for-profit side that I'm like, hey, by the way, this is my nonprofit. Can you help me out there too? So, it's scratching each other's back in that way. So it really has been a good situation to be in.
That's awesome. Yeah, people don't understand what gets dropped, and when when high net worth people hire security, they're not just looking particularly for physical security, but there's a plethora of things that they need to understand, and training as well. They need training in their house and to understand, all this stuff. Like I always say to people, "Where's your medical kit in your house?"
Oh yeah.
Cool. So you're in a good position. So you probably don't know what's in it. It's not prepped, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So let's work through that. And then let's talk about this. You've got guns in your house, right? So what are you going to do when somebody breaks in? Oh, I'm going to protect my family. How? Yeah. How are you getting to that bad guy?
Yeah.
So there's a lot more that can go into this, and it's incredibly valuable stuff. So
really
we'll blast
is.
both of these out, man. And we're going to connect you with some people, and this is going to be a fun one, man.
I like it, and I like that you're jumping on board. Again, this is everybody's problem, and I just want to help, and I want to get the knowledge out into the people's hands that really need it. So, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on and for sharing my message.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to close out with something a little different. I always end with everybody on this typical note. So, a lot of people, it's a hard time outside, and people have been working harder than ever. People have been struggling, stressing. Is there a story that you can share of in your life? It could be SEAL oriented, it could be not. It could be just somebody in your life, a hero of yours, a story that's not told that people could listen to and learn a little bit more about the personal side of you.
Try and talk about this without getting emotional, and it ties into the law enforcement. I think I've talked about it on a podcast before, but I was actually in Boston when extortion got shot down. So we were doing a urban training with Boston Police was hosting us, and again, coming full circle to why I love BPD so much and why I go out of my way to try and help them out. I lost my best friend and some really good friends in that helicopter crash, and the community took a huge hit. It was epic and tragic beyond explanation and proportion. And it took years for the guys there like me to really accept and get past it, to be able to function in the right way. But I remember it was the last day of our training, and we were actually at Fenway Park for a Red Sox game, and sitting watching the game. We had the whole squadron there. And God, 6th, 7th inning, my phone starts ringing. And I'm just blowing it off. Finally, I get a text, 911, text me back, and it was my buddy. He's like, "Hey, man, this just happened." Okay. And he goes, I got like asking, "All right, how are they? Are they okay? What happened?" He's like, "No, they're all gone." I said, "What do you mean they're all gone?" He's like, "The whole troop, they're all dead." And as a Boston kid, someone who grew up in Massachusetts, being in my childhood favorite place to be, Fenway Park, huge Red Sox fan through my whole life, sitting there knowing I just lost all my friends overseas, it was a very surreal moment. And a lot of the guys had left the games. They're not huge baseball fans, so we're guys are scattered around the city. And I hit up a guy who's now helping me out, one of my really good friends who's BPD and getting ready to retire, I think, hopefully in the next year or two, so he can come work with me. But I hit him up and I said, this is what's going on. We need to ground everybody up and get everybody together. And within minutes, group texts were coming out. BPD, Boston Police, went all over the city with cruisers and picked up every one of our guys and brought them to their police bar. So they have their own bar. That it's a private bar, just their own guys. Unloaded us all into the bar, opened the bar up. It wasn't even open. Brought in a guy to serve the bar. Wouldn't take any money and just started giving us as much alcohol as we could drink, which turned out to be quite a bit. And babysat us while we sat there and waited for the list of names. And we sat there for a couple hours before we started to get the first messages coming in on who it was. And I'll never forget the guy, the bar, completely silent while just going down the list. And I'm hearing my best friend's name and my other friend's name. And I'm just like, unbelievable. And, how do we, typical teen guy fashion, deal with that kind of trauma? We just get completely shit-faced. And I remember I was the last one out of there. I stayed the whole time and I waited, and it was just me and my cop buddies and one other guy. And they closed the street off around the bar, and they had a line of police cars around the corner. And as our guys would stumble out of the bar, they would put them in a cruiser, drive them back to the hotel, and put them to bed. And they did that till every guy was in bed. And then the next morning, they had escorts waiting for us to go to the airport to fly us back to Virginia Beach. And, during that event, we had the Boston Bagpipers play a party for us that was a dedication to Colin Thomas, who we had lost on the deployment before. And we had about 15 bagpipers come out and play that. So first thing we got back, I called the bagpipers, "Hey, there's going to be a memorial. Can you guys come?" And Boston Police sent their entire bagpipe, their gala column, down to play the memorial. And I don't know if you were there. It was the entire convention center at the oceanfront, standing room only. I'm sitting with my buddy's parents, and in walk the bagpipers, and not a dry eye in the place. And from that day on, I have had this relationship with Boston Police and with that city and with the gala column that they will do anything and everything for our community whenever we ask for help. And I now will do anything and everything for their community without them having to ask for help, because I believe so much in what they do to keep us safe, the same way that they believe so much in what we do to keep our country safe overseas, that it was truly a life-changing moment for me. And out of tragedy, was birthed this nonprofit to give back to the guys that I can't even begin to explain how much have helped our community and me personally out over the years. So, I hope that's the kind of story you're looking for, but it's the one that comes to mind for me.
100%, man. And, just from me to you, 100%, your brothers are looking down on you and they're proud of you. No doubt.
I appreciate that, man.
Keeping on that tradition and helping to protect and preserve, man. So
yeah,
it's an honor to know you, man. And
appreciate
what
likewise.
You're doing. I'm a little jealous that you're cooler than me, and I'm gonna try to live up to that, because in the world of the SEALs, no matter what, if we're not competing, we're done. So yeah,
competing or complaining, one of the other.
There's a lot of that as a civilian too. For sure. Well, we're going to blast this out everywhere, brother.
Great.
And
love it.
when you get ready to come to town, make sure to let me know in advance, and I want to set you up with some people.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. And I, again, appreciate it. It takes everybody. So I appreciate you digging in and getting the word out there. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Speaking of word, right now, go check out c1p.org. That is communityfirstproject.org, c1p.org. Make a donation today. More zeros are better than less zeros. So
Always.
See what you can do.
Always.
Right on, my brother.
All right. Thanks, bro. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Frogman